The Browns report is currently third right now within the AFC North here at Chat Sports for new subscribers added this month behind the Steelers channel and the Ravens channel. So, if you want a free Cleveland Browns YouTube channel and you want to help us take down the Steelers and the Ravens in the process, hit that subscribe button down below. Coming up on today's show, there is some buzz out there about Cleveland maybe signing a running back. Surprise, surprise. You can really tell it's the offseason when we are playing the greatest hits. Plus, we're going to talk about a very interesting article that came out regarding players from last year's draft that are somewhat forgotten and should not be forgotten. And it included a Cleveland Browns player. So we're going to dive into that. So a lot to unpack on today's show. Hope everyone watching is having a good Sunday afternoon. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Now, let's start things off by discussing Kenyan Drake because he was listed as a running back target for the Browns by Cleveland.com. A Bleacher Report article not too long ago also included the Browns as a Kenyan Drake destination. So there has been some chatter, very low-level chatter, no hardcore blue check marks connecting the dots, but it's out there, so I wanted to bring it up on the show here. Because the former third-round pick out of Alabama is currently a free agent, and last year he started 5 games for the Ravens and appeared in 12 games for Baltimore. Now, when you look at what Kenyan Drake has done over the last 4 seasons, he had some really good seasons back when he was with the Raiders, 2019, 2020, 817 yards, 955 yards, but he has fallen off the last 2 years. In 2021, just 254 yards, and last year for the Crows, 482 yards. Now, Kenyan Drake definitely brings some passing versatility. That is the one element of this running back room that is lacking a little bit here. I would say that and just pass blocking outside of Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is a above-average pass protector as far as running backs go, but Jerome Ford is a little bit unproven in that element, so Kenyan Drake could definitely step in and as a veteran know how to get the job done, how to read defenses, how to pick up a blitz and whatnot, and keep Deshaun Watson healthy. So, with that being said, the Browns, in my opinion, I think the only way they sign a running back is if they aren't confident in Jerome Ford after some preseason games and some real live training camp reps when the pads are on, and John Kelly along, I'll kind of lump him in there. But more importantly, if they have an epiphany or a wake-up call or a moment where they go, hey, if something were to happen to Nick Chubb, which has happened before in his career, not often, but it has happened, are we confident in Jerome Ford and John Kelly filling in? If the answer is no, then maybe they do look to add a veteran back to this running back room because that is a one, snap away from this running back room really getting down to some unproven players in Jerome Ford and even John Kelly a little bit. Now, what do you guys think? Should the Browns sign a running back? Yes or no? We've talked about this at length before, but it's always good to get a refresher and see if anyone's minds have changed or not. So let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments section. Now, the Cleveland.com article also had James Robinson and Darrell Henderson as some other running back targets. Now, Robinson is interesting because he had a breakout rookie season with the Jags not long ago. Then, unfortunately, he tore his Achilles in December of 2021. And then 2022, slowish start in Jacksonville, ultimately got traded to the Jets. Really couldn't hang on there. He was signed by the Patriots earlier this offseason. They released him about 2 weeks ago now, and it looks like he's just unable to stay healthy, and this Achilles injury continues to haunt him. Darrell Henderson, on the other hand, is a guy that's been to Cleveland. He was at least there for a visit about a month ago at this point. Now, it did not come with a signing, but maybe that was the Browns doing their homework going, hey, if we get a better picture in August and getting into September, that Jerome Ford might not be able to hold on to RB1 duties for a game or two if something were to happen to Chubb, then we know Darrell Henderson's in our back pocket, and he's kind of our safety line, right? Our last line of defense to go, okay, let's sign someone in free agency now that we know what we have in Jerome Ford. For me, I say you give Jerome Ford the entire preseason and figure out if he can hold on to RB2 duties and if he has improved in areas he has been weak in. Now, the only pushback I'll even give myself on this is it's just preseason. I was thinking about this yesterday, where I was thinking, okay, if Jerome Ford looks awesome in preseason, then why are we having this debate? Like, why are we, splitting hairs over the second running back on this roster? And then I remember last year when Jordan Elliott looked really good in the preseason, and that did not translate to the regular season. So it is just preseason, and I'm here to remind you, and I'm here to remind myself of that. Don't get too drunk on preseason highlights because the translation to the regular season is not always there. So I'm sure the Browns are keeping that in mind, but I don't know if we should completely just get in bed with, if Ford looks good in the first preseason game, shut down all RB free agent talk. We have our second running back on this team. Shifting gears here, I want to talk about a sleeper candidate from the 2022 NFL Draft. A player who did not really shine a ton in his rookie season, but maybe this year this forgotten player can emerge. So that is, of course, David Bell. He was included in a Bleacher Report article as a forgotten player from the 2022 NFL Draft. The former Purdue Boilermaker was a third-round pick, number 99 overall in last year's draft. And he has only fallen down the depth chart this offseason, right? Cleveland added Marquise Goodwin in free agency. They traded for Elijah Moore, and then they drafted wide receiver Cedric Tillman out of Tennessee in the third round of this year's draft. So David Bell's stock is not super duper great right now, as he is towards the bottom of the depth chart, and he is hanging on by one, maybe two roster spots before falling out and not making this 53-man roster. Now, Mary Kay did talk about this, and here's what she said. Bell is still in great standing with the club and will make the 53-man roster. Kevin Stefanski loved him coming out of Purdue last season and still sees the same tremendous potential in him as a slot receiver in the mold of Jarvis Landry. So we've got that from Mary Kay, which I have reiterated before, and I have talked about that David Bell is not going to get cut from this year's roster. He is going to make this 53-man roster. But Zach Jackson from The Athletic put out his 53-man roster projection, and lo and behold, there's no David Bell on it, right? It's Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Marquise Goodwin, Tillman, and then the super-duper sleeper pick, Jalen Darden, as the sixth and final wide receiver to make this roster. So let's have a nice little back and forth here and figure out whether or not David Bell is a lock to make this roster, if he's a guarantee, if he's a bubble player, or whatever you want to call it. But before we do, PD's polos are still on sale over at Fanatics. Go get your favorite Cleveland Browns polo on sale, chatsports.com/Browns polo. That link's in the comments and the description of today's show. I got mine, repped it last week, in the hamper right now. Will be coming back to the screen this week, so get your own right now by using that exclusive link. For me, I think David Bell is staying. Like, he's not getting cut. He is going to make this 53-man roster. I don't know how else to say it. But I have a couple of reasons why he's going to make this 53-man roster. Number one, he was a third-round pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. You just don't move on from third-round picks that quickly unless there is a major off-the-field issue. That is not the case for David Bell. So for that reason, I'm very inclined to believe Andrew Berry does not move on from the 99th pick in the NFL Draft just 1 year later. Number two, it's not a very stable future wide receiver room, and I'll expand on that in just a moment, but David Bell could be a piece moving forward. Even if he doesn't have a large role in 2023, he may have a very big role in 2024. And number three, he's not a bad player. David Bell is not bad at organized football. The guy is, sure, he didn't show a ton of flashes and sparks and whatnot in his rookie season, but he was also in a run-first option as the third or fourth wide receiver. So he didn't get a whole high volume of targets. I don't know what people expected out of him for a guy that didn't get more than 3 targets a game, and usually those came in the second half anyway. But going back to number two, there's a big question mark in this wide receiver room moving forward, right? You look at Amari Cooper here. His cap hit in 2024 is $23.7 million. So if Amari Cooper does not look like he is someone worth every single penny of a $23.7 million cap hit in 2024, when the Browns are already in the red, that's probably going to lead to a potential cap casualty, where Cleveland can save, I think, $12 million against the cap if they were to move on from him. So if they are already kind of somewhat planning ahead here, thinking we might move on from Amari Cooper, might be a good idea to hold on to David Bell as everyone's going to move up the line a little bit. Another reason is, let's say you do hold on to Amari Cooper because he looks awesome this year and you don't want to move on from him. And I can see that happening as well. Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of this upcoming season. I don't see a world where they find a way to pay Cooper and pay DPJ. It's a very small chance, meaning if Cooper puts out 1,200 yards and like 10 touchdowns, then you probably want to hold on to him. And if DPJ is the third wide receiver on this roster and doesn't get a ton of buzz in free agency, and he gets 2 competitive offers, one from the Browns and one from a rebuilding team, maybe he decides to stay in Cleveland, not take less money, but maybe not wait out for the rest of the summer and see if he can get more money like some players are right now. So if you do end up moving on from both of these players, where if Amari Cooper doesn't look like he's worth the cap hit and Donovan Peoples-Jones balls out and the Browns are priced out of him in free agency, well, you go into next season, and who are your wide receivers? Elijah Moore still under contract, Cedric Tillman, and David Bell. You might be looking at a very young wide receiver room, so maybe it's a good idea to hold on to David Bell. Last year, we didn't see a ton of him, 24 grabs, 214 yards. He had some nice moments, I felt like, kind of in the second half of the season, always sort of came in the second half of games, where he had some nice third down conversions and whatnot. But yeah, David Bell was largely ineffective. I think we can all agree during his rookie season. But I think to move on from him after 1 year is just too early. If you want Jalen Darden on the roster, fine. You're taking 7 wide receivers then, because David Bell is one of those 7. So what do you guys think? Will Bell end up making this roster? Give me an M for make or a C for cut. I'm putting M for make in the comment section. Give me your thoughts down below. Now, getting back to some other things here. Bell, like I said, he makes this roster for the reasons I outlined, which is if Cooper and DPJ are gone from Cleveland in 24, then David Bell is walking into a large role. So it's a good idea to invest in the future and maybe hold on to him for an extra season. And if he doesn't look great and he's kind of off to an Anthony Schwartz start to his career, so be it. But at least give him a second season after drafting him in round 3 last year. Now, the other players included in this Bleacher Report article of forgotten guys: Calvin Austin, the wide receiver for the Steelers; David Bell; Lewis Seen, the safety for the Vikings; Daxton Hill, the safety/corner for the Bengals. I think Daxton Hill is going to have a sneaky good season. The Bengals lost both their starting safeties in free agency, so he's going to be tossed into a big role. John Mechie, hopefully he can rebound nicely after taking down cancer. Trevor Penning, the guy that the Saints were very jazzed up about, and he was just a bulldog, if you will, his rookie season, getting in fights and whatnot. Jalen Tolbert, he sucks. I picked him in fantasy last year. I'm not forgiving him. And then Zamir White for the Raiders. Who knows? If Josh Jacobs doesn't stick around, I guess, in Vegas, that could be a potential sleeper candidate for 2023. That's going to do it for us on today's show. As always, we wrap up with off-season mode pick a card time. Now, producer Rolly is off today, but we do have McCullough back after a nice week-long vacation. Had a good time going down to Utah, checking out the national parks. Big Tex, you want to give us a card prediction?
Yeah, let's go with the 5 of clubs.
5 of clubs. 5 of clubs. Okay, 5 of clubs. I don't dislike. I just don't love. I'm going to go with the Jack of Hearts. We've only had 2 hearts drawn in the month of June. Sabermetrics right there. All right, one more cut. Ooh, Queen of Clubs. Queen of Clubs. That's going to do it for us on today's show. We're going to sign off and see everyone later.